Saturday, July 1st. I'm here with Mrs. Duck River Honey, who hates being on YouTube. We're riding around northeast Georgia, the Lakemont area to be specific. We'll stop in and see a friend and mentor. It'll be a fun day. All right, so you just found out that I put you on my YouTube video. What's your hot take?
You did not get permission from me.
That's not how you worded it a couple minutes ago. You were a little more stern.
Get me off of this.
Sunday evening, July 2nd, and we just got back from Georgia visiting my wife's family. I was able to go and see Bob Benny while I was down there, which was good. Always good to see him. And got back early enough that I decided to run out to a yard and get some work done. That'll give me a head start on tomorrow. So I'm pulling my sourwood supers up above the skateboards. The flowers have got maybe a day or two left, but I've got shining sumac that's just about to open. And I've got two things with that. I want to catch all of it I can, so I need to churn through these supers, and they need to dry for a day or two because it's uncapped honey. I need to dry them out in the honey house, get the moisture content down, and then I need to get the wet supers back on these hives to catch the sumac. So I'm trying to get escapes put on. I'll show you some of what I'm seeing here. This one is a good one. I don't know if I'll show you the bad ones or not. I've got some with just a few frames in them, but this one's pretty good. So that's what you like to see on a sourwood flow. They're working the outer frames. So I think I've got a wet super in the truck, and I'll probably drop it down on top of the excluder and then put the escape underneath this one and get those bees out of there, come back and get it. I've already taste tested in here, and that is sourwood. That's a super I put on there. So I'll write SW right there so I can sort them in the honey house, not have to taste everything. The color on this is really, really light. I'll grab one out and show you. See, I wouldn't be harvesting this if I didn't have a honey house that I could dry it in and be confident of it. You can see that color is just almost water. Very, very good flavor. Good stuff. So I'm sweaty. I've been stung. Feel a little more normal now. I spent several days away from the bees. It feels like a month. This yard did pretty good. I've got 2, 3, 2, 2, 2, 3 supers above escapes. I'm leaving some empty supers. So if the sumac does hit or there's a little residual sourwood, whatever, they'll have a place to put it. And I'm going to try to get these extracted and then get them back out here and distribute them pretty evenly. So when shining sumac does come in, if it comes in, I'll have the ability to catch it. So I'm not going to get enough sourwood to make a difference in my bottom line. This is more like a pride thing. You know, I can bottle this and keep it or give it to friends and family, landowners, things like that. It's just, it's a valuable honey, but I'm not going to have enough of it to really make a difference. So it's more of a pride thing. It's neat. Good to get the experience, neat thing to do, and it's fun. I like it. This swarm trap is in my dad's driveway. I've caught bees here every year, but I didn't put it up until nearly June this year, and I thought, well, I just won't catch anything this year. Here it is, July 3rd. Got back from a trip to Georgia, and that has got a swarm in it. They have moved in. So I'm here in this yard trying to get some escapes set and harvest some honey. And I've got this feisty hive that I was going to use to make splits with. And I think I realized why they're feisty. They're just queenless. They're not laying worker yet, but there's no brood, no nothing in there. I just so happen to have this little nuke sitting over a double screen board. So I'm going to find the queen in there, stick her in a cage, tape over it, and just stick that whole nuke on top of this colony. And hopefully their foragers will... how can I get their foragers in there? I may offset the box so that the foragers can find their way in, or they'll just drift. That's probably what I'll do. I'll just set the box on there and make them reorient. Let the foragers drift into that box. Pretty handy to have these little nukes sitting around. They're frustrating to work. It makes the bees aggravated when I'm, blocking their entrance and stuff, but they come in handy for situations like this. So here's what I've got. Nuke's in there. The queen is caged and the cap is taped over. Just set them on top. Now I'm gonna put an escape board on, get the bees out of these supers. Not a lot of honey in there, but I want to clear it out. Come back in a few days and get that, and probably manually release that queen. One more thing I forgot to mention is this was the third box on this hive. It's full of honey, and they are backfilling everything in there where the brood was and everything. And I'm using this nuke box, so I'm taking that box of honey. I can use it and they don't need it. So extracting a little bit of revenue out of this situation. That is not what I want to see on my beehives. Whew. So I'm hearing this is basically a nuke yard. The bigger hives are Corey Stevens queens from this spring. That one got big enough, I put a honey super on it. They filled that up with sourwood. So I'm taking it. Since I'm doing a sourwood harvest, let's give them a box of foundation, which I don't expect them to do anything with. But I'll be back at the end of the week and give them another super. There are some other hives in here that will be big enough to get supers as well. If we get shining sumac, I expect that they'll make some honey. We'll see. Well, that's what happens when you have a queen in your cell builder. I thought that I had the queen in this box down here, and I put it above a double screen, but turns out she was in the bottom, so they didn't draw cells at all. Jumped in here today, got back from a trip out of state yesterday, and they had emergency cells in here and nothing down there. They tore down all of my grafts. So I just swapped them. Now I know the queen is up here. I'm gonna leave this until tomorrow, let all the field bees go back into that bottom part, make it super strong, and then I'll graft again, wait 2 days, and then put those grafts above an excluder on top of a queen rod hive. Let's try her again. Here's a good example of why I don't like these frame feeders with open tops and stick floats. These small colonies, little nukes, I try to build comb in there instead of drawing out my foundation. Here in my mating yard, and I peeked in here last week and I was discouraged. You can see the drones there, that's laying worker. Some of the frames in here look worse, but I was a little early when I was looking through them and got depressed, because you can see the regular brood around that. What happened is I've used resources from queenless hives to make these mating nukes, and I introduced virgins. Well, the virgin fixed my laying worker problem. So she's taking this hive over. I'll find her in here in a minute and mark her. And this is a success. Not only that, but it's the second one in a row. In 626, I said these two were laying worker. 7-2 we got a marked queen. Sometimes they just need time. So I'm sitting here doing my grafting, and DC Paget of DC's Gadgets, he's the one that makes the little aluminum queen wheel that I bought, and I mentioned it in a video that I keep it in my truck and I like it. It's small, it's well built. Well, apparently he sold a few of those after I posted that video, and I didn't have any affiliation with him at all. I didn't know him. I just think people who make cool stuff should be rewarded for that. He's got a small business, and I'm all about promoting brilliance. That's what Ian Stepler always says, promote brilliance. Well, he's building good stuff, and I think that deserves to be promoted. Well, he reached out to me after I posted that little plug and thanked me. And I said, that's great. I hope it helps. And I need to buy one of your queen rearing or your grafting trays. And he up and sent one to me. I didn't have to pay for it. I tried to pay for it, but he wouldn't let me. Just mildly... when you get grown men try to pay for things for each other, and it's like you're getting one up on somebody if you're able to pay for it, or you give them something and they can't pay you for it. Sort of like a competition, and I lost. So I appreciate it, but I wish that he'd let me pay for it. This thing is awesome. It's I guess it's aluminum. And it folds up, it fits over the steering wheel, it's adjustable for different steering wheels. I've got it set up to hold this frame upside down because that's how I like to graft. And it just holds it keeps the steering wheel clean, holds the grafting tray. You can tilt your steering wheel to get the right angle on it. It's just super smart. And it's a solid aluminum. It's really well built. So, if you guys graft in your truck, I recommend you get one of these. Highly recommend it. I wouldn't have said that until I used it, but I was using this little plastic tray that I got for like $10 off Amazon, and this is way better than that. I put some screws in that little plastic tray to try to hold the frame and the cell bars and stuff, and it sort of worked, but I couldn't get the angle right. And this thing just flat works. It's nice. Highly recommend. Thankful for my drying room, my honey house. I am pulling uncapped supers, partially full supers of sourwood, and I pulled one super yesterday because I had one yard that just had one, it was a nuke yard, had one hive that filled a super and stuck it over an escape, so I needed to pull it after a day. I didn't want to mess with that one yard today. And I got it to the honey house last night and checked it with a refractometer. It's a little over 20% moisture. It's awesome to have a honey house where I'm confident in drying that down. I'll probably let it dry for 3 days. So I went in there this morning, it was holding about 90 degrees and 27% humidity. It's pretty awesome. Doing some thinking about the economics of beekeeping, and you've got income generating units, which are hives, but there's another part to it. You've got drawn supers, because bees will fill drawn supers when they won't draw out foundation. you know, they'll pack nectar in on a light flow if they've got empty comb to do it, even if it's not a heavy enough flow for them to draw foundations. So I'm thinking about that, and you've got this income potential for a drawn super. Say it can hold 40 pounds. I'm wholesaling honey at $9 a pound. That's quite a bit. So, but once they fill it, once that super is full, it actually becomes like a warehousing cost. It's actually costing money because of opportunity cost. If you could extract that super and get it back on the hive as soon as it gets full, then that would be the most efficient use of that resource. So I was not able to do it this year, but next year I think I'm going to extract more often. Like if I've got a honey house I can dry uncapped honey in, and I'm set up to extract efficiently, when I go out on a flow and I'm adding supers every week, I should be taking supers every week and extracting all at the same time. That would be the most efficient use of those resources. Food for thought. You guys can see that at this point in the season, my mind is already going to next year. You know, I need to finish out strong, take care of my hives, grow my little baby nukes, and make more queens and all this stuff, get through extraction. But we're on the tail end of the season this year. I'm already just thinking about next year in the back of my mind. That blower is bright yellow. You'd have to be a real idiot to leave that in the last bee yard you took honey off of. Second time this year I've done that. So I'm trying out this heavy-duty cider press for pressing honey out of wax, and I gotta say that with these strainer bags, it came out pretty clean. I don't know if this is gonna pay for itself, but it's got a chance to. We'll see. Well, looks like they're working cells in here. Let's take it out and see how they did. It looks like they've started quite a few of those, but not all of them have got a lot of royal jelly in them. So maybe they're rejecting those. Maybe it's just after July 4th, you know. Bees don't like to make queens when they don't want to make queens. If I look tired, it is because I am. I was a little overstimulated last night and didn't sleep very well. I've got a crazy story to tell. I don't know if I should tell this or not, but I think I will. But I'm gonna try to leave names out of it. So yesterday afternoon, I had a local preacher coming up to my honey house because I extracted some supers for him. He brought me 6 honey supers. He's a beekeeper with 2 hives, I think. And instead of him getting all of the extractor and uncapping stuff and all the stuff that it takes to work honey, I told him, $10 a super, and I'll extract for you, and you buy buckets and stuff, and I'll just give you extracted clean honey, and Good for him, good for me. I've got all the stuff sitting here. Makes sense for me, makes sense for him. So he was coming at 6:30. I was gonna meet him here and load him up with his supers and honey and stuff. Well, we were sitting down to dinner at probably 5:45 or so, and my sister calls me. She's on her way home from work, and she says that down by the bridge on our road, there's a hitchhiker. Fella in a red shirt, has a long scraggly beard, long shorts, and just doesn't look right, you know. We've had a little bit of that over the years coming in from that end of our road, and you know, you think it's drug related and things. You hear rumors and stuff, so something to watch out for, but I don't think too much about it. So about 6:15, I head over to the honey house. I'm gonna clean up a little bit of stuff and unload some sugar and things and get the preacher loaded up. So I turn on the road where my dad's house is and our farm is. It's off the paved road. It's a 1-lane dirt road. I get around the curve, and well, there's that hitchhiker next to our property, and the county sheriff is sitting next to him in his car. The county sheriff lives 2 houses down from me, and his brother, who's also a police officer, lives 1 house down from him, which is helpful at times. So I start backing up. I can't get around them, and you know, want to give them space. And so I start backing up, and one of my neighbors is walking up the road behind me, and he hops in the truck with me. He was trying to listen, make sure everything was okay, you know, make sure he didn't need to call anybody for the sheriff or nothing. So we kind of hang out until the sheriff gets done talking to him. We meet him in his driveway to his house and get an update, and it's not a good situation. He said the guy is kind of talking crazy. He has a long history with the police. He did find out who he was. He's got a long history with the police. Just talking crazy. Got combative with him and was telling him, I'm just going for a walk. You know, there's nothing illegal about going for a walk. Well, yeah, but he don't know where he's going. He doesn't know where he's at. And he's on this loop road that runs miles back in the farm country. And finally comes out back on the paved road. But there's nothing back there. There's nothing. There's like 4 houses on this miles long road. It's a 1 lane. In places it gets real tight where it's been washed out. So in places you just have to back up if you meet somebody. You know, 2 cars can't pass. So and he's got no water. It's hot, sweltering hot. It's just not a good situation. So we leave the sheriff, and you know, he's going to monitor and make sure everything's okay. My neighbor is going to go feed his pigs and cattle, so he's going to pass this fella and kind of check on the house that he's got down there. It's an old farmhouse they've been refinishing for his daughter to live in. Just sort of wants to make sure that fella keeps on going, doesn't decide to stop anywhere. So I run home, tell my wife to lock all the doors, you know, make sure the cars are locked and stuff, and then I'd come back out and go to the honey house and load the preacher up. Everything's good. And he pulls out, and I'm unloading sugar from my truck into the storage container, and I hear the awfulest screaming of motors and police siren, and think, what in the world is going on? And then the preacher calls me. He didn't even make it to the road here. He's still in the driveway. He calls me and says, Nathan, there's an old truck just ran through your dad's yard. He's got the police after him. Oh Lord. That's got to be that hitchhiker, and if he's in a truck, it's got to be my neighbor's truck. So I run up to my dad's and make sure he's okay. You know, lock the doors, make sure the doors stay locked. I'd already called him and told him that. And then I'm thinking, if he's in my neighbor's truck, where's my neighbor at? Is he okay? So I start driving down the loop to go check on him. You know, I think, boy, I hope he's not laying there hurt with a cracked head or something. And I top a rise and start going down this steep hill. It's got a sharp curve in it. And this is a dirt road, so it's kind of chattery. You got some gravelly stuff on the top and slick. and there's a farm lane that goes into one of my neighbor's farms, and I meet this guy. He's coming up the hill in this curve in my neighbor's truck, and I see who it is. And I didn't think this at the time, but that fool didn't know where he was at. He went out to the main road and traveled down the main road and turned back into this loop and was coming in it from the opposite direction. So he didn't have a clue where he was at. I don't know if, I think the police had it blockaded at that time. They had a barricade up on both ends of the road. So I don't know if he met them and turned around or what. But I met him in this curve, and my thought was push him into this farm. I've been all over that farm. There's no entry, no exit. So I just stop and block the road. And he tries to come around me and get in the ditch. He's going to try to come around me on the wrong side of the road. So I just pull up into him a little bit where he cannot get by me. So he keeps turning and goes out the farm lane, takes out a 10 or 12 inch cedar gate post, runs over a gate. Truck jumps 3 foot up in the air, and he runs up the farm lane. Well, of course, if you drive an old feed truck into a pasture with cows, farmers know what happens. The cows come running. They block the road, and he didn't want to run into the cows, so he turned off the hill. And I've been on that hill. I think if he gets down there far enough, he's not coming out of there, even in 4-wheel drive. It's just too steep, and it rained last night. And he saw how steep it got, so he saved it out and brought it back up into the lane and starts coming toward me. So I had pulled up. I thought he was going to roll the truck or something and they might need help. So I back up real fast and park right on top of the stock gap so he cannot get out of there. And at that point, the sheriff, his brother's in the car with him by this point. His brother is a police officer too. They spin him and force him to stop, wreck him basically, tie him up. And he jumps out of the truck and starts running toward me. And I think, I hope this guy don't make it to me. So the sheriff's brother runs after him, overtakes him, tackles him to the ground. Then the sheriff jumps on him. I run up there to see if they need any help. The sheriff asked me to go get a pair of handcuffs out of his car door, so I do that. They sit the guy up finally after the cuffs are on him, and I say, "Where's my neighbor at? You're in his truck. Where is he? Is he okay?" And he's just talking crazy. You just can't understand him. He's talking gibberish and crazy, combative, and just nuts, absolutely nuts. He had to be strung out on drugs, had to be. So I run down to where my neighbor had been. I see the tire tracks where the guy had spun out when he stole the truck, and but neighbor's not there, no blood on the ground or anything, thank goodness. I'm calling everybody I know to call. I finally get a hold of his son, and his son had picked him up. He picked my neighbor up. He's okay. Everybody's okay. Thank goodness, everybody's okay. Truck it's actually still usable. The quarter panel is tore up pretty bad, but I think it's drivable. May have some suspension parts that need replacing and stuff, but that guy's having a worse day today than he was yesterday, I'm sure. If there's a takeaway from this, if there's any law enforcement watching, thank you guys. You guys have got a tough job. You see some horrible things. You see the worst parts of humanity and deal with it every day so that I don't have to and everybody else doesn't have to. They don't have to see it. You insulate us from that stuff. So my uncapped honey that was running about 20% moisture 2 days ago is now running about 17%. Pretty awesome. So I'm working on my sourwood extraction, and I'm not going to be able to call it sourwood. There's too much clover mixed in. The color's right, but the flavor's not enough to call it a varietal. So that's disappointing. I think I will keep this separate though, because the color is lighter. It's a real light amber color. So I can do a couple of different things. I can either call that a summer wildflower and sell it as a different flavor of honey. I'll have my dark spring wildflower, which is a lot of tulip poplar, and then I'll get a summer wildflower that gives a different flavor. If I've got enough of that, I can try to keep them separate, or I can mix them together and then shoot for like a medium amber. Either way, you know, I'll probably do some of both and see where I think the flavors are at, and just make a decision on that. You know, I'm always kind of amazed how these honey supers are like a time capsule. It's looking back in time of the nectar blooms. Got this side of this frame, and that side of that frame. This side was toward the center, so this would be earlier because they start filling the center of the supers first and then they move outward. They obviously changed nectar sources. I think this is mixed with sumacs, and I don't know what the earlier honey was. It was lighter and clearer. It's just so neat. Well, it's been a week. Gotten some extracting done, made some progress. I've got supers put back on hives. Coming up next week, I've got to make some nukes, and I've got to get some frames put together to be able to do that. I've got these double medium mating nukes. I've got 2 colonies, or 2 queens in each, and I've got to try to get one of those out, get them separated. So got to get that sorted out, and then I'll have queens ready at some point next week. My queen take looks pretty poor. I think I'm only going to get like 12 or 15 or something like that. It's getting late in the year. We're after the solstice. Dearth is coming, and the bees don't like making queens when they don't want to make queens. So yeah, I may try another round or 2 and just see if I can feed them and stimulate them into doing anything. We'll see. It'll be something to fool with. I could use some more colonies, although it's getting late enough in the year that I'm going to have to figure out how to boost them to get them into winter and strong. Bees don't like drawing wax this time of year, so I've got an idea that after I get all of my honey extracted, I'll take my supers, and as the comb is coming out of the extractors, I'll sort it into boxes of honeycomb and then boxes that have had any brood in them at all. And that does a couple things. Brood frames, of course, I'll have to protect from wax moth, but I've been thinking, well, what I can do is my production hives that I take these supers off of, I can pull a frame of emerging brood out of there and replace it with a drawn frame that's had brood in it, and then feed those hives. And they should, you know, they've got good queens and stuff. They should recover pretty easy and quick. Now I can use this emerging brood to boost my little nukes, and I think that's a pretty viable thing to do. I can also use some of the comb to boost nukes, but I can't give them more than they can protect because we're into hive beetle season. So this time of year, it just gets a lot more critical on growing nukes and keeping everything tight. Can't give them too much pollen sub because of hive beetles. It's harder to make queens because of dearth, and bees are ornery. Just, you know, we're heading into summer. That's just kind of how it is. So I'd like to thank David Ball for donating to the channel. He set up a monthly subscription type thing, so I really appreciate that. It's very kind of him. Of question and answer for this week. I've had someone I like and respect ask me when I'm going to get the UBO video done. So we're supposed to get rain tomorrow, and I've got a lot of the edit done already. It's just a lot of footage, and matching everything up is tedious and time consuming. I've got a lot of hours in it already, and I'm not done. So I'm gonna try to finish that up tomorrow and hopefully get it out this weekend, at least the first part of it. I'm gonna do a longer form video for Corey's channel, Corey Stevens, that will have more information in it, more of like a podcast or long form thing. It'll be interesting. I would listen to it. So I think it'll turn out good. It's just a lot of footage to get through, and I've had a lot of time constraints recently, and a police chase and stuff like that. So a lot going on here in Duck River. Guys, as always, if you've got questions, you can leave them in the comments section below. You can email me at info@duckriverhoney.com. I appreciate you watching. I'll see you on the next one.